You are listening to Party Nerds Weekly.
Yo, what's going on, people? This is Jay here, Master Pack. We're here for another episode of Party Nerds Podcast. You can see us live on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, on Twitch, on YouTube, wherever you are watching this at.
Facebook,
Everywhere. Anywhere you can reach us. But today, we have a very important topic. Something that unfortunately dropped today because some very well-renowned media outlet, Variety Magazine, decided to throw a microphone in Martin Scorsese's face and basically went on a rut again for probably the third time about comic book movies, the oversaturation of comic book movies, and basically what they've been doing to the business of cinema. I have my esteemed peoples with me, Ralphie, Jorge. We got to get to it because the thing is, it's starting to just become like a bothersome thing because there's a lot of people who work in movies that are now making comments about the business that they formerly worked in. Christopher Nolan has done it. Some former actors have done it in the past, basically talking about actors that did not even want to go into doing superhero movies or anything like that. But it's almost like, what's the problem at this point? If they made so much money, what's the problem with the culture itself? Anybody?
That's a good question right there. I mean, it's kind of a complex. I would probably answer. It's very complex because it seems as it's almost like a damn if you, but damn if you don't. Because hey, if you happen to be a part of that project that has that success, I mean, obviously you have the fame, that comes along with it. More projects probably along the line off of your name, et cetera, et cetera. But as well as you do, if like I said, it's damn if you don't. If you're like, this is not what the type of artistry that I want to display, which is fine. You can do what your own, but again, you're dealing with a market that if it's hit, great. If it doesn't, then you can't blame another part of the sector for why your success isn't there. I think, like I said, it's just a lot of it stems with again, a damn if you do and damn if you don't.
I feel like basically the bigger you are, the more of a target is going to be on your back, especially with the media.
And it's yeah. I think that's the crazy part because a lot of these people have made good money making movies, and they've made like we're talking about Scorsese, like as far as like him being like the opinionated piece that's hung on the mantle, like you can't speak highly enough of him, of what his movies have accomplished. And then for him to basically come at the fact that maybe like the last 15 years have basically delved into a saturation or oversaturation of comic book movies, and for it to be a problem.
But who is he to set the standard? I know he's respected all, but like, does he set the standard for everybody? I just want to know. Maybe it's in the law somewhere.
I wouldn't necessarily say he sets the standard. I mean, definitely his name is very well known. Like I said, if you are at a specific where your name does ring bells, like I said, yeah, you're going to have, the attention of the people that you want to grasp. But as well as, too, it's, not how old is he? What is it, like 80 or something like
He's
that?
80.
It almost sounds like, the grandpa that's kind of going off right now. Like, oh, don't talk to me about that. I mean,
right. Get off my lawn.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, yo, we're kind of here. Like, don't get me wrong. Yes, you stated it. Like the oversaturation part, there is definitely, a lot of truth behind it. But as well as too, it's like the essence of what film industry is again, it's an artistic form that's on a big screen. And if your artistic, thing is on the screen that has a lot of punch, we're gonna go to it. It just seems as if, like you said, you're over here kind of a bit bitter, and then it's like, I got something that's coming out. They better see it and stuff like that. And if it doesn't do well, it's gonna be like, oh well, blame the superhero industry. No, you can't say that.
Right. I mean, look, he should be taking notes with superhero movies because his movies don't have good CGI. Look at The Irishman. They had to. It was kind of weak, and I know that there are YouTube accounts out there that made it better in some scenes. Remember when
Right.
De Niro was kicking that
What you're
guy?
talking
in the
about is
foot?
when they were doing
What?
the facial recognition. They were trying to make them look younger and everything like that, and it just didn't work out for him.
Exactly. So he should be taking notes from these superhero movies because superhero movies got the CGI down pat.
Yeah, and also there's a motion to basically dive into the fact that when you're looking at just and I know you know exactly who he's talking about. He's basically talking about Marvel. He's talking about the MCU as a whole. And for as much as you want to basically harp on like their latest phase 4. Phase 4 was 8 films. It did $5.7 billion. It almost hit the trifecta just in the midst of the movies that they did. They're not at phase 5 yet. But the thing is, when you're looking at it from a business model, it's always, man, this is doing extremely well. We got to do more of this. So where I'm sure there was projects of his or maybe some other directors out there that got shelved and put to the side in order for theatrically some more comic book movies to arise, whether it came from Marvel, DC, whatever. But the thing is, taking over movies, taking over TV, streaming, having these types of branches to where it's almost everywhere. But it's almost in the same effect as any other genre that's basically out there. There's sci-fi shows out there. There's sci-fi movies. Horror is doing amazing, which I don't think people give it credit for. They do the littlest amount of budget and have astronomical fucking profits. So I don't think anybody's even talking about them. You don't even hear the horror genre, like the directors or anybody even saying anything, because they'll put up to like $3 million into a movie and then make 75 or 100 or something like that. And they'll be fine because their profit margins are very slim. A horror movie, all you got to do is have a banging ass score, some excellent acting from motherfuckers that can scream their ass off, and terrifying looks. And you barely need CGI.
Yeah.
Barely.
Yeah.
And that'll go good on the editing floor.
And they get it done. So, like, they're using Scorsese as a mouthpiece. I'm sure the Hollywood brass, maybe the people behind the curtains are like, yo, go out there and say some shit. And no, he's an 80-year-old man. So it's like the man was actually like born in like the 1940s. So if you figure a man born in the 1940s is going to basically say something pivotal about the industry, and no, he's been in the game a long time, but the first example that he gives is a person that did 3 Batman movies.
Right.
Well, do you think he would have changed his tune if he was asked, Martin Scorsese was asked to do a superhero film 10, 15 years ago? You think you would have done it?
You know what? This is the thing. I think he's the type to where if you threw a lot of money at him, he might have done it. But the thing is, he's one of those prideful people, mad integrity. I'm not doing that shit. And he probably, if you were talking about like 20 years ago, like I can't even say 20 years ago. Let's say 30, to when like the only comic book superhero movies were basically Batman and the older Superman movies.
He could have done Batman.
So that was done Batman.
Yeah, phenomenal.
He could have done Batman. Tim Burton coming in the game doing Batman set him up for stratosphere. After that, he did whatever he wanted. Any movie did with Edward Scissorhands. He did Nightmare Before Christmas. Coraline. He's doing all them types of shits. But that's his like niche. So for him to do a superhero movie first, it almost projected, be like, you know what, this looks like a Tim Burton movie. Or with Christopher Nolan doing Oppenheimer, it was like, yo, okay, now you want to see Christopher Nolan movies outside of what he did, but let's not call a spade a spade. Aside from his movies, he's done 3 superhero movies. So it's like, don't use him as the example, because he made money on some shit that everybody else makes money.
I think that's where it comes down to, where you were just kind of like, I was kind of explaining it, just like, you're old and you just rambled off whatever the first name that popped up, but you didn't really take into account, what that person has done. You know what I'm saying? He didn't think about it. It just, this is what we're going to do. You got to hold off on that, let alone, I think, to even further elaborate on like the whole movie perspective and stuff like that, as you stated, it's a business, right? So Marvel has kind of like outlined everything so that, yeah, this business in this 2 to 4 years is going to produce these, and yeah, we can have a trajectory of how much we can plan on making. All these other filmmakers, like, again, it's still, well, let's call it for what it is. He's still old school, bro. Like, you're still thinking like, oh, we're gonna drop this one movie and we're gonna make it, and then that's it. Like, they're in a different league now. It's, as you would probably say, it's a younger generation that further outlines a lot of things, as opposed to, I'm gonna drop one blockbuster movie and I know it's gonna be a hit and we'll continue maybe next year. Can't have it no more.
Right.
You got to be set up for success.
Yep, back to back.
Yeah, and you almost have to look at it right now, because the missiles are coming in on all angles. So right now you got the Hollywood brass talking ill of comic book movies. If you go on YouTube and my main scroll is basically anything comic book related, you see people dissing comic book movies nonstop, even the ones that used to love the shit. So, excuse me, we're almost at a point now where you have people on all angles attacking comic book movies, to the point where now business executives are starting to make decisions to where the oversaturation is starting to end. And now it's like, we're going to peel back. We're only going to do about 3 projects a year. Totally fine. Space everything out. That way it's more anticipated. There's a lot more drama built up going into the next movie, which is totally fine. But also, again, if it continues to be this way, because they talk to people are talking about there's an agenda with comic book movies and they're doing more diversity and inclusion in this, or if they do God knows, if they do a random casting, people go ape shit, it's not going to be fun anymore. So it's almost to the point where
that.
Right.
Well, people want to handle 2 movies a year.
People can handle 2 movies.
I think they can, but they probably won't like it. As with anything in life, there has to be a change, and definitely with the industry, it's clearly obvious that you need to have a change of pace, those types of stuff. But as well as too, I think it just also needs a change of pace with, again, the different genre movies and how it's also marketed. Because let's say, for instance, right now, The Creator is coming out this Friday. You know what I'm saying?
Amazing.
It looks amazing and all that types of stuff. Can you honestly say that the industry is hyping up this, again, original film, or if it is an original film? Again, I'm just kind of basing off what I know so far. This original film, are they hyping it up? If it was a comic book movie, no. It's not as much. Yeah, I've seen a couple trailers on my, my YouTube, or, if I'm like scrolling like here and there, but I don't have the same type of hype as if, Doctor Strange was coming out. So who is it really then to blame the comic book industry if they at least are backing their own projects, trying to push this in your face? We want you to come see this movie, but then you have the other side, which is like, yeah, we got this great film. It's going to be this and this, but see it at your own pace.
Right.
No.
And the thing is, they're looking at everything. They're looking at everything and taking jabs at it. Like they took forward to the fact this year and last year that Marvel didn't make any billion-dollar movies, but yet they were crazy close. Like if I'm looking at it right now, Guardians of the Galaxy made $845 million worldwide. So to be $155 million off of the mark for a movie that was more so projected budget wise to do 400. And then on top of that, even quintessentially, if you're not even talking about the MCU, for what was it, Across the Spider-Verse, to do what it did, being an animated movie, like they're still doing massive numbers. So until Marvel's doing DC numbers, don't talk about Marvel. You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost in that aspect. But the thing is, you could tell that there was a lot of people that got involved in comic books that didn't necessarily love the shit. And outside of that, they have been a part of the engine that is being used to tear the shit down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like there's like a ploy that's starting to happen every time anything gets released comic book wise, whether it's DC or Marvel. Do you want them to do well? Do you? You know, because if you keep fucking with it, it'll end.
I mean,
So
I think I would use
we put
an
the question up.
example.
So
I would put.
Oh
Go
no,
ahead.
please don't use the Fast and the Furious example.
I was.
No, I said please don't use the Fast and
That's why I kind of brought them up. I kind
Wait,
of
so-
brought them up.
Go ahead. What is
Wait, so
no,
you're saying-
speak your piece.
No, so you're saying to fill the void, do you think people will come back to reading comics and graphic novels?
I mean, the
I don't
comic
know.
book business is
It's
has
a
not
novelty
been-
now.
Yeah, it has not been great. People go for the book that they think is going to sell the movie. So they're not going for the ragtag issues that they have to buy off of a whim. Comics have been making more money digitally than they have in the past 15 years. It's helped, but it hasn't, because physical properties have gone away. It's not even, it's not even close to the fact that the comic section in indie comics, because of course I do a podcast on indie comics. The indie comic profitability that has happened within Kickstarter over the past 3 years has grown every single year. People have been making their own comics. What it's done is organically cause people to want to create their own stories. So Kickstarter has made money off of comics every single year. There's always like service fees and everything. If you create your comic, you hit your goal, and then you get to ship it out to everybody, and then Kickstarter gets paid. So the budget alone from comic books for Kickstarter in indie comics has made $30 million last year, which is huge for just random people who have their own publishing, creating their own stories to get it out there. But that's neither here nor there. If you're talking about just Marvel, DC, Image, TKO Presents, Dauntless Comics, Band of Bards, the main figures in publishing that send out a lot of comic books that are pretty much out there, like Dark Horse Comics, Valiant, all those guys. Anything that you have that has had live adaptations that you've watched, they continue to make money. Have they gotten in trouble in the past because they haven't hit their budgets? Yes. Have they continued to operate? Yes. They are still a functioning business. They do have peaks and valleys just like everybody else in business. It's not just them going up and everything like that. But if we get knocked back down to the pavement where there's maybe like 1 to 2 comic book movies a year, if DC keeps doing what they're doing, they got to start rethinking shit again.
Mm-hmm.
This James Gunn regime is just starting, and it's almost come to the pass to where if you're not doing exactly what the comic book allows, you're going to pay for it. Some adaptations are good, but if you're not held true to the comic itself and it sucks, they're going to crucify you for it. It is what it is.
Well, the people who read the comics, but now I guess more and more people are not reading comics and they're just going right to the cinematic universe, correct?
Yep.
That's why every time you go on YouTube, that's why every time you go on YouTube, what was it? They were talking about Multiverse of Madness and WandaVision. The link between those, it was like, well, you got to read House of M if you really got to, if you watch WandaVision and Multiverse of Madness. Had nothing to do with that bullshit. It's like there's so many people telling you to read this specific comic because it's going to give you some clues as to what's going to happen with Wanda. And none of that bullshit happened. Nobody predicted that she was going to go into another dimension, force walk her way in through somebody else's body and snap the entire Illuminati's neck Yo,
Yeah.
like nobody suspected that bullshit.
So
Because
what people are
it's an
doing, I guess, these days, I guess they're going right to the cinematic universe and then occasionally going on Wikipedia and Googling these characters
Cliff
and,
notes.
and briefly see what they're about.
Yes.
And then creating YouTube channels and thinking that they're geniuses and gurus.
That's all
afterwards.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's okay to speculate. It's absolutely okay. You know what I'm saying? But the thing is, if your channel is built on speculation, Jesus Christ, bro, come up with a new gig. It's not working for you. Like, if all you're gonna do is bring up a story that's never gonna happen. Like, I keep hearing about World War Hulk. I've heard World War Hulk and basically Planet Hulk for the past like 10 years. Thor Ragnarok came about. Yeah, Hulk went away. He did not. He did. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately, like the story kind of like carries itself because like he didn't absolutely. They kind of like mixed in a bunch of stories. So it's almost like it's a little bit of Planet Hulk, but it's not. And you got bits and pieces of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Hulk goes into slavery. He's the Hulk the entire time. He ends up being a gladiator. He falls in love. Reed's like, ain't no way this motherfucker's coming back to this planet. Blows up the planet, but the Hulk already left. But in the midst of all this happening, he blows up his future wife and pisses Hulk off. Hulk then arrives back on Earth and starts to just go berserk. Didn't happen. I already emasculated him. So it's like, okay, when does the Hulk actually like come back? And then he introduces his son recently, and that just looked crazy. But the thing is, you're almost not cognizant of what Marvel's doing. So I'm not saying that because I still follow the plan because I love the comics. So I'm like, okay, I'm a ride with y'all. If there's the ultimate ending to this, like Jonathan Majors is still Kang, Loki's coming out next week. I can keep following this shit. You know, we're in the multiversal saga. So it's like, I hope y'all got y'all P's and Q's together. Next 2 months from now, Marvel's is coming out. Hope that shit's popping.
Mm-hmm.
James, for the people who...
I want DC. No, I want DC to succeed too.
Yeah, I was gonna reference that. Like, I was gonna say, like, again, not to have a industry that's oversaturated with it, but if we are allowing to let Marvel, again, let's just say take a step back, or at least allow, again, that underdog, or take advantage of, the limited space. Not to kind of bring us back to the topic, but like, you have all of these movies that come out, and you have like the dates as well too, where they kind of align with big movie box office stuff. I never understood why. All right, if I know, again, use an example, the Marvels is coming out next Friday, or they planned it on December 15th, whatever the case may be. Why would I combat my original movie to that? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I would clearly then push my dates a little bit back, or else if I feel like perfected, fully let's do a surprise early release then.
And I'm glad that you said that, because I feel like when Marvel was doing 7 fucking projects a year, it pissed a lot of people off. You know what I'm saying? There was people that probably like had their whole schedules thought out, whether it was like other studio properties. It might have been Sony. It might have been Universal. It might have been I can't say 20th Century Fox because that's now in Disney's banner. But MGM and all these other studios out there, they probably had their release dates out. And then when Disney put their shit out, they were like, fuck, we got to rearrange this whole motherfucking thing. 7 projects. I got to dodge all this shit. Like, I have to literally take my movie, and I either got to push it to the next quarter in hopes that it does make money, because it's going to get overconsumed with the movie population that's going to hit it when it first comes out, because the first weeks are so pivotal. It is what it is. So right. I'm pretty sure that a lot of studio heads, what was it, Bob Chapek? He was the former Disney CEO before Iger came back.
Mm-hmm.
Was that his name? So
I'm
Chapek
gonna
was
have
the
to
one that
look
was
that up,
like,
but
yeah, we're doing like 5 to 7 movies, and we're doing all these Disney Plus streaming joints, and he did like 7 of them in the midst of a year. So it was like, and it went all the way from WandaVision to Hawkeye, and it was a bunch in between. But in the middle of all that, they had to like just sit there and find ways for their product to get sold. But if you look at 2023, the number 1 movie in the world is Barbie. Number 2 movie in the world is Super Mario Brothers. The number 3 movie in the world is Oppenheimer. Then it's Guardians of the Galaxy. So it's like there's room for everybody now. I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of people talking about it to where they was like, we have to figure out a way for us to have a hit outside of comic book movies. And they did it. All of them did it. That literally that Barbie Oppenheimer campaign sold itself.
Yep.
Two movies that did not even fucking match. One a historical drama, and the other one is a totally marketable character, icon, toy from the 1920s to now.
That's a nostalgia piece too. Yeah.
Yes.
It is a nostalgia piece to it, you know.
Mhm.
And Super Mario Brothers to do what it did, it's a totally animated movie. It's kind of like when Pixar used to just like, and that's the thing, nobody called out Pixar. Pixar was a part of Disney, and they used to kill it every time that they put out some
Toy
shit.
Story.
Toy Story,
Like,
yeah.
come on. Up.
Wally, Up.
Love Wally.
Yo,
Finding
like
Nemo?
every time they put out a Pixar thing, Finding Nemo, anytime they put shit out, kids was lined up.
And them toys?
And the thing
Holy
is, people started
shit.
talking. I'm saying, because Disney is about merchandising.
Yep.
But yet, it's the comic book movie genre. It's like they're not getting the top actors because the actors are getting snatched up by the comic book movies. They're probably getting more money over here. It's kind of like it's kind of like these soccer players nowadays that are going to the Saudi league and getting like $200 million. It was like, I'm going to play over here. Yeah, I'm go to the bank. I'm gonna do this 1-year contract for like 200 mil. I'm gonna feed my family for generations, and then I'll come fuck with y'all. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Age out in the league.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
But,
they think these actors are going to age out with these comic book movies, and then the other movies that when we produce are like, shit, we can't find any good actors.
I mean, who's a good example? Edward Norton. What was his? Edward Norton?
Yeah, you might be right. Edward Norton.
He was somebody that was like, he realized like what this was going to take, and he was like, I already kind of have like other projects that I want, and he didn't want to like cement himself in that, which I'm not knocking the dude. Yeah, great. But as well as too, now all of a sudden you become diluted in the mix, and then I'm like, where's Edward at? You know, Edward's doing some serious projects, but do you hear about these serious projects? No, I hear about Mark Ruffalo though. I know he fluffed off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and in the end of the day, it's going to come to a head, and I'm afraid about where it's going to land. I mean, it's not that people are having superhero fatigue, because if there was superhero fatigue, the movies wouldn't make the money that they're making. It's literally going to come to a pass where maybe and so the writers deal, which is done right now, thank God. Shout out to the WGA for doing their goddamn thing, and hopefully SAG-AFTRA is going to happen right after that. But as soon as all this shit gets back in order, I'm pretty sure that Hollywood's going to have like talks about what basically this new era is going to be. And, you know, Bob Iger was kind of like in the middle of that, and he said some foul ass shit. Who's going to want to fuck with that?
Right.
Not no established actors, maybe some new cats. That's something that Marvel was good for in the beginning. But like for established actors, is basically like, I'm gonna wait till y'all motherfuckers is broke, and I'm gonna take your house until and then y'all gonna come crawling back to me. Like that really was like, I don't know if you want to say that shit. That's not cool, bro. Like, you got people that work really fucking hard for you. But that's just like, but it would have to be something cataclysmic, like the fact that we're hardwired, where there's a lot of people, critics aside, that are talking big shit on comics, and big shit on comic book movies. And if they're not going to supply the money to do so, like to put into the machine, who knows? We might just get these like these decent niche type superhero movies that we're in series that we're seeing, like Amazon Prime, Invincible, The Boys, like smaller projects, smaller budget, and can filtrate an audience. And there's a lot of people that also say, it's too inclusive. There's way too much diversity. I'm not liking where this is going. It's now too many females in this superhero movie. They talk like that, but comics have always been in the realm of being inclusive. And that's why everything is branched out. You have Invincible for your type. You have The Boys for your type. The whole Infinity Saga is definitely for you. But then there's other stories out there that we got to tell. So if they're more inclusive, more diverse, more female centric, maybe not this character, they always fight about the race swaps and everything like that. So they're not sure where to attack next. There's certain channels that just live off that shit and derive off of that. And it's filtrating like it's almost, who was the villain in Osmosis Jones? That fucking like that was like the virus.
Whatever, the strep or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Whoever the villain was in Osmosis Jones is definitely those YouTube channels. They are like they're just killing the brand. And the thing is, they don't understand that if the comic book genre goes away, you go away too. What you gonna talk about now? Texas T Sweetener, how you doing?
What up, Texas T Sweetener?
So it's like, at the end of the day, if you talk ill on comics and they're not changing for you, and you talk ill on comics and they're not your cup of tea, and you decide to stop watching. But the thing is, what we come to find out is a lot of these critics and a lot of these reviewers and everything like that, they go to the movies and buy a ticket just like everybody else. And they do it just to shit on the product. I don't pay for something that I don't like. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you, like me, I might not like a certain type of fish. I'm not going to buy it, eat it, and then go on YouTube and shit on it. Just
do a review on it.
Yeah, I don't even like yellowfin tuna. But I ate the shit. And guess what?
It's real. It's really, really funny that you say it like that, because let's take out of the comic book stuff. Like, again, I'm going to use this reference again because I want the more movies to come out. The Fast and Furious, like, I know the trajectory of where Fast and Furious is going. I know exactly how it's going to be. It's going to be outrageous, but I'm not taking that additional time out of my day to just, as soon as I bought my ticket and see it, and I already know it's going to be outrageous, but I'm going to get on here and just tell you guys, the movie is just dumb. It makes no sense. Like, that's where that changes that whole life, where I'm like, you have a lot of time on your hands, buddy, to complain.
Right. It's like, okay, so Albert put, these days every niche genre has its own following thanks to the internet. That's right. The good and the bad. Like, there's what we tend to do on our show, and I know a lot of people don't do this, is we debate with each other. Some of us might like the shit. Some of us don't like the shit. And we go at it. It's not all of us giving high praise to something, or never all of us totally shitting on a product that basically came out, or a superhero movie or something like that came out. It's usually across the board. All of us have our own opinion. It's kind of like basically Ralphie with Fast and the Furious. He loves it. I don't like the shit. But it is what it is.
That's right.
But the thing is,
You don't understand family.
yeah. So like, family. But they're looking at it through this clouded ass fucking lens. It's 6 of them on a YouTube channel, and they're all dogging the shit. And there's not one person that says, you know what, I kind of fucking liked it. And if that person ends up saying, hey, I kind of liked it, they all dog pile on that person. That shit is crazy. I was like, I couldn't even be on a show like this. Yo, like, why would I even want to like just like it was like debate me? But like, come on,
you get slaughtered online.
Yeah, online, just doing what God knows what.
Yeah,
but that's what it is. That's what you're supposed to do with movies. Like, you know, there's certain movies that I like that are cheesy as shit. You know, like those old Superman movies, cheesy as shit. I like them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's true. Negativity does get clicks. It's fucking horrible.
And that's the whole thing today. You bash a movie, everyone's going to see why you hate it.
Yep.
Could you imagine if there was like if there was a ways and a means for somebody to have a whole positive YouTube channel? The only positive YouTube channels are like cooking shows. Them motherfuckers get great comments. You ever look down a cooking show? You're like, damn, that shit look good. It was like, yeah, for real. I'd eat that too. What you put in that recipe? The comments are so positive. You know, it's amazing. But when it comes to like products, like anything live adaptation wise, genre wise, even some cartoons, like for a while, I did not watch the Transformers movies. I ended up watching this last one, Rise of the Beast, and I was pleasantly surprised because this shit actually entertained me.
Welcome to the welcome to the boat, buddy.
That's right. Remember when we covered Thundercats when they were gonna make it all cartoony?
My God, right? Thundercats Go. Yeah. Thundercats Go. I felt like was going to literally like do the samurai suicide pledge. You know, who's even there? It's the pledge. Bro, if I would have watched that, that would have murdered me. Like that was going to be me because they did it in like a chibi style, and it was going to be more so generated to kids. But maybe that was just me being like an old soul and being like, okay, they're not going to get it. They're not going to get it. They're not going to get Mum-Ra. They're not going to get Cheetara. They're not going to get the sort of the Book of Omens. You know, they're not going to get any of that from this little kid show. It's not going to happen. That's why I shitted on it so much. It's like all y'all liked Cobra Kai, whatever the fuck it is. Yeah, is that
Cobra Kai? You knew exactly what it was.
Yeah,
it was Cobra Kai.
On it.
I know. Don't you try to run on it? Don't you?
Like all y'all like Cobra Kai. I can't stand that show. Like I ain't never seen a bunch of motherfuckers getting that many fist fights in my life. Like this whole town in the suburbs, this whole town is going through kung fu fights. It's ridiculous. Yeah. The kid got his back broke in the middle of the school. It was stupid as shit. I stopped after season 2.
I will never forget when they threw that little boy through the glass window. I said, "Oh my God!"
I'm like, yo, like this shit doesn't make sense. They are kicking teenagers, little teenagers, like 13-year-old teenagers.
They all do karate. Everyone in that school does karate.
Everybody in the school was fucking each other up. I like
big
for one
big gang violence.
I like thank God the cast looks like it does, because if that cast was all black, they would have called that East Side High. They would have closed the school down. They would have closed the school down immediately. They would have fired all the teachers. That school would have got relocated. They would have had to bust them kids in miles away from where they used to go to school. I'm like, it's some bullshit. California, y'all all fucking doing kung fu in the middle of class. Kiss my ass. That's why I find that shit weird. I do. I find it weird.
It's a great show. You're missing out on so much.
But I also think, because I said it, it's training group 1 for future comic book movie actors and actresses. Because that's what you want.
Yeah.
Like to be honest, like that, you could take all them little kids and throw them in a Mortal Kombat movie, and that shit would have been perfect.
Mortal Kombat kids.
Yeah. And now look, and now yeah, they would have murdered some kids. And now look, Zolo
Origin story.
is Blue Beetle. It's straight up origin story. But I'm saying now Zolo is Blue Beetle. So
Yeah.
it's like it works. It absolutely
But
works.
does it work? How you think it's going to pan out?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, Blue Beetle didn't do too well. And that sucks because I feel like DC got the short end of the stick. We talked about that. It was actually a good movie. And I felt like motherfuckers just like looked at it. They looked at it and was like, oh, this isn't a legacy character. I'm not going to see that shit, and just panned away.
Yeah, I'm tired of seeing
Like
Superman
I had
and Batman. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, they almost like I had so many people ask me, yo, who the fuck is Blue Beetle?
I mean, like again,
That
we
was
wanted
like
DC. We wanted DC to copy Marvel's playbook, first phase. We wanted because we wanted to see a good movie. But after seeing it, I'm like, okay, all right. You know,
Look,
it was
at the end of the day, I think it's our fault too. You
Yes.
can't we gatekeeped like a motherfucker. You know, we were the biggest of gatekeepers, to where we were not inclusive of letting anybody in, and we held all this information of Blue Beetle to our chest. You know, like shit like that. And then when Blue Beetle comes out and they're like, who the fuck is Blue Beetle? We were like, what the fuck you mean you don't know who Blue Beetle is? Like this, like we were offensive. You know,
Right.
so like Justice League Unlimited came out. Like we never gave up the information. Like the older shit, the old X-Men comics, all these. Look, let me tell you, when Marvel does decide to do X-Men and there's mutants on the screen that not a lot of people know, questions are going to start popping up. Who's the bitch in the yellow raincoat with the fireworks? That's going to happen.
Right.
You know, like there's so many mutants. Like you talk about the Avengers and everybody knows every single character. When the X-Men come out, like this is like there's so many.
Get a notebook.
Groups, X Factor,
X Factor, Excalibur.
Yeah.
You got the Hellfire Club. You got all the villainous, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, the Acolytes. You got the Morlocks. Yeah. You know, like these are all the characters that we've held to our chest, and we're gonna have to explain to people X-Men drops. But this is also part of the problem. Part of the problem that we've gatekeeped for so long, that when shit starts popping up on screen, people just ain't gonna know. Yeah. You know, like when I'm talking about Blue Beetle and I'm like, well, you know, Jaime Reyes isn't really the first Blue Beetle. He's actually the third Blue Beetle. And they're like, what the fuck? There was 3 of them motherfuckers? They're like, yeah, well, Ted Core was, but he was like the first one for DC. Like, and then they're like, yo, nah, man, chill out.
Yeah.
Just give me one character, let it run. And that's that problem with retconning. Like, I feel like also in the same effect, like you talked about earlier with the world of comics, dwindling down or people going back to the genre and everything like that is another big problem on their hands. Manga.
Mm-hmm.
I went into a BAM the other day and there was 4 rows of manga and there was a portion of a row for Marvel and DC. So your anime, Jorge, because you love this shit so much, your anime is starting to bust ass. It is starting to DDT the market, and people ain't ready for it. You know, because you don't have to retcon. Like we talk, there's that classic argument of people saying, like, yo, what should I read if I want to like get started on comic book movies? Well, you should read this one by such and such, and you should read this book by such and such too. But if you want to really, like, get into watch this YouTube about it, and then there's some cliff notes. No, manga is very simple. It's one guy started book 1 and read all the way to the fucking end. That's it. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like manga is fucking creeping. Like what my man just said, he said manga is creeping up low key and fast.
That's
like
true.
I ain't never seen no shit like that. Like as far as the physical game of mangas, like I collect comic books. But I do have some mangas. I do. Like they're and it's so compact. They're so very small. They're little. Look at these things, man.
Like so much information. So
Right.
much information.
Yeah, it's like this big motherfucker. Look at the size. See this shit? See the size of a comic book as opposed to a manga? This shit is little, and it's way more pages, and it's a lot of dialogue that you got to read through, in order to actually like get the characters. That's why like people that go through Naruto and One Piece, good God, 1,000 fucking episodes? You kidding me?
Yep.
No.
That's when I kind of feel a little bit then kind of weary about the direction again of the movie industry, because as you can kind of see now, live adaptations are trying to make their little segue. Shout out to One Piece. That's kind of like, oh, we got a little niche over here. Let's start playing in this water again.
That's what I said. Don't let them start making bangers.
Don't like that's exactly. It's going to come to a point where it's like, all right, maybe the Marvel DC thing isn't working up. Hold up. Here's an Inuyasha or a Yu Yu Hakusho. Let's just mess around with that. Let's see what happens, and then boom, here we are.
That's exactly what it could turn out to be. And the thing is, you could just follow the storyline. Like the thing is that Marvel and DC were doing is they were taking bits and pieces of important information from certain comics and throwing them into one movie.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to do that here. There's only one superhero show that is following the exact storyline from start to finish, and who's been doing it so far. And that's Invincible. Invincible episode 1, as fucking high rated as that shit was and as gory as it was, that was the exact like first 6 issues of Invincible, and it's following it to the T. Like that show is amazing. So like it's almost like if you and the thing is, it's one creator. There's no retconning. It's Robert Kirkman, who did Walking Dead. So Kirkman wrote that shit all the way through. So Robert Kirkman did Invincible. He also did Walking Dead. So it's like, it's one guy. So it's almost like this is the one thing that I always say with creator-owned comics. Todd McFarlane, Spawn. He writes Spawn. He draws Spawn. And it goes all the way through. When you got one person, you pretty much know what you're getting. So like with Kirkman doing Invincible, I'm not going to have to retcon any of this, jump to a certain point and then do something else. I got one story. So that's also benefiting into all of this, to where like when we watch the Infinity Saga and the Multiversal Saga and everything like that, if you start to jumble up stories and it becomes confusing to the audience, you're going to kick yourself in the own ass. That's just going to be the point. I'm afraid of where it's going to go. So when we look at our question at the bottom, it says, would the world be a better place if comic book movies didn't exist? No, because they literally are American mythology. That's our bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
It's always going to be American mythology. Where people go to school and learn about Greek mythology, our comic book heroes are going to be the mythology for us going forth. You'll be talking about characters' abilities with your kids till the day is done. And it's going to have
these
to
days. Well, kids these days think that Civil War was a fight between Iron Man and Captain America. So yeah,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But the thing is, also these kids, because we grew up on Transformers and G.I. Joes, they grew up on Dragon Ball. You know what I'm saying? So like, yeah, they grew up on Dragon Ball. They grew up on Naruto. So like when they had to like sit at home, you know how many fucking episodes in Naruto there is? They could literally like sit through a marathon. Their parents didn't even fucking give a fuck about them. They left them in a room and like fed them a sandwich. And they just sat there and watched 17 episodes back to back to back to back. They got a Crunchyroll password from their cousin and went nuts. But that's the world that we're living in now. Like basically anime is going to start taking up the genre. Japan is going to start making a lot of money off Americans. And that's just like plan B. Comic book movies will still be there.
Yeah.
Well, do you think that anime studios will pop up in the U.S. or it has to be in Japan to be called an anime? Just like Champagne has to be in France.
Has to be. I feel like if the studios that are creating it have to be in Japan, either that or if they're importing some of their artists here, let them open up their own studio in California or something like that, and just keep to themselves. No windows on the doors. Just lock them motherfuckers in. You get the drawing. You know how them motherfuckers are. You know,
working in Japanese hours. What?
They want to see their families.
I was stationed out there for 8 months. They feel like if they don't do what they got to do in their job, they feel shame. Like this, like you shame the family.
That's right.
They're like, yeah, it's like, nah, you need to get to work. I need 1,000 issues by tomorrow. like, God damn.
You think Japan will start claiming like, okay, you guys want our product, then you have to pay royalties to the country, and
of course, of course,
bro. You know damn well the people, the creators of One Piece got piggity paid by Netflix in order to adapt a live action version of fucking One Piece. But like, for those of us, for people that don't watch One Piece, that saw that on the screen for the first time, that have never seen it, probably saw like the CGI as being like weird. They're like Arlok looking the way that he does, like everybody just looks crazy. Like how they're dressed up and everything like that, how the Marines are dressed up, and like it's nuts. But the message in it is amazing. The story in it, like, come on, all this motherfucker Luffy just wants some friends. That's all. Luffy just wants a friend. Mm-hmm. He don't want family like Vin Diesel, but he wants a friend, and he takes care of his friends.
You can never get rid of family.
You know what I'm saying? The message is just spewing with positivity. Who can hate on that? Nobody.
Yeah.
And they got to prove for season 2 right away. but whatever happens with the good happens with the bad. There was a Bleach adaptation. That shit was trash. Dragon Ball Evolution, everybody.
Don't bring that up. Don't bring that up. Come on, they clearly didn't
see
have
what happened.
Any, no,
but you see what happens when the Americans take over an anime product.
Yep, that's right.
They let the creator of One Piece get creative control over the studio to do the characters in his own image. Dragon Ball was released through Universal.
Oof.
You
remember who they got? Who was going to play Goku?
It was the one from Shameless.
Yeah, the dude from Shameless.
They basically just took everybody from Shameless and said, "Here you go."
Yeah,
Dragon Ball movie.
Like, and this is the thing. Shameless is a great show. Great show. Imagine how great of an actor he is on Shameless, and you have to look at this motherfucker it was on for 6 seasons, 6-7 seasons.
Yep.
And be like, yo, this motherfucker was Goku. Can you believe that? That's like if the Infinity Saga was trash and Robert Downey Jr. just made all his money on something that like was great outside of Marvel, and you had to keep looking at him like, that's that motherfucker that they cast as Iron Man. You know what I'm saying? Like you had to look. Yeah, because if you see him on Shameless, be like, yo, you wouldn't believe this shit. That motherfucker right there was Goku. Like you have to tell people that.
Oh my god!
They're like, what? Funny. They did a Dragon Ball movie? Yeah, and that was.
If I ever saw him walking down the street, I mean, how do you live with yourself? Just how?
Yeah. This is the thing. from that point on, in that failure, he felt like he had to be great. I got to get on the show and I got to make this worthwhile. I'm
Yeah,
going to
he's
do
still
Shameless and
typecasted.
I'm going to make this. Yeah, I'm sure he's typecasted. He's
Yeah.
probably like a drug addict now in every
Yeah.
movie. On smack.
Or at every low-level con doing autographs for DBZ Evolution.
Oh man,
$5.
could you imagine? Yo, could you imagine if he showed up at New York Comic Con doing autographs as Goku? Somebody would knock him the fuck out. Like dead ass.
I might be the one in line. I'd be like, "How dare you? How
Dare you."
dare you?"
They were like, I know his autographs are $5, but I'll give you 10 if you fuck him up real quick.
Love it.
But at the end of the day, I mean, we brought this up as a cataclysm that pretty much we feel like what is Dave Chappelle always says, the ball's getting a little tight. There's too much air in the ball. People are talking way too much shit about the comic book genre. And if they don't love the shit, they could either just like not watch the shit, which is what you could obviously do, or get on the love train. What the fuck? Like you gotta like the shit and ride it all the way through. It's the only way it's going to be successful.
That's true.
It just is.
Yeah.
So final thoughts on what we feel could be the realm of truth for us in the future.
Jorge?
I mean, look, comic books aren't going anywhere at all. Of course, Marvel is going to be mitigating, a lot of their release dates and taking more time, which, okay, cool. But how
just fine.
Are the people ready for that? Are they going to be like bashing even more? We want more. And then when they get the product, they start bashing it even more.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because don't let them be too good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're here to stay. We just, I guess we're in the middle of the middle of the fork road, and we don't know where it's going to take us. So we don't know. So we just got to buckle up and enjoy the ride and see where it's going to take us, man. Because
it's like
I have no clue.
A paradox.
Yeah.
Ralphie,
if I had to say something, speaking of business perspective, go where the money's at. Show me the money. That's
Follow the money.
Follow the money. You follow the money, you're gonna be all right. And if you don't got no money, make some money.
Tell them, Ralphie, there's a reason why there's so many Fast and the Furious movies. Why is that?
Because that's where the money's at. Get with it or get lost. Family.
Oh my God. Can't stand it. So that's our show for today. I'm James Graham, Fast and Facts Boys. This is Ralphie, Jorge, the evil producer. You can check us out on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, wherever you're basically seeing this at.
Every Monday night, 9
p.m. Every Monday night, we are out.